Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we are taking a deep dive into something that might just change how you think about your next phone upgrade.
Oh.
We're talking about reviving those smartphone legends.
Yeah.
Those flagship phones from a few years back?
Yeah.
That are probably sitting in a drawer somewhere.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine getting the performance of a new phone,
Okay.
but without the hefty price tag.
Mm.
And for this deep dive,
Yeah.
we are checking out a YouTube video from the Sydney CBD Repair Centre,
Okay.
where they show us a real-life screen replacement
Hmm.
on a Samsung Galaxy S10 5G.
Cool. The S10 5G, even with a damaged screen, is described as still kicking.
I know, right?
It makes you realize that these phones are built to last.
Yeah,
They have so much life left in them.
definitely.
The technician in the video even mentions how surprised he was by the S10 5G's repairability,
Really?
especially compared to newer models. And that's something that really stood out to me as well.
Yeah, me too.
Newer phones are so hard to repair these days.
I know. Why is that?
I think it's this whole trend of making phones thinner and lighter.
Okay.
They're using a lot of adhesives,
Uh-huh.
and that makes them really difficult to open up without damaging something.
Makes sense.
Which is a shame because repairability is so important for the lifespan of a device.
Yeah, totally.
It impacts our wallets and the environment as well.
Right.
It was so interesting to see how the technician took the phone apart.
Yeah.
Like all those tiny components.
Yeah.
You can tell it takes real expertise to avoid damaging anything.
Definitely. And the technician even recommends that people take their phones to a professional.
Oh, for sure.
He says that while DIY is possible,
Yeah.
it's complex
Yeah.
and it's risky.
Makes sense.
You don't want to accidentally fry your motherboard or something.
Oh, absolutely not.
Think about all the data you have on your phone.
Right. Photos, contacts, everything.
Exactly. So it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah. Definitely better to leave it to the experts.
But it's kind of funny how the technician calls the S10 5G outdated.
Dated
Yeah.
compared to newer models.
Uh-huh.
But is that really a bad thing, though?
I don't know. That's what I was wondering.
What do you think?
I'm not so sure.
Sure, the S10 5G might not have all the fancy new features,
Yeah.
but it can still perform really well.
Huh. Yeah, that's true.
And think about it, you can repair a flagship from a few years ago
Okay.
for a lot less than buying a brand new one.
That's a good point.
So it's like getting a high-performing device without breaking the bank.
I like that.
It's a win-win.
And in the video, they ended up replacing the entire display and housing assembly.
Oh, wow. The whole thing.
Yeah, for a more reliable fix.
Interesting.
So I was wondering, what are the pros and cons of that approach?
Versus just replacing the screen?
Yeah.
Well, replacing just the screen can be cheaper
Okay.
and faster,
Uh-huh.
but replacing the whole assembly can be more durable in the long run.
Oh, I see.
It really depends on the device and how much damage there is.
I got it.
And in the end, they got a fully functional S10 5G.
Yeah, with a brand new display.
And that's the best part.
It's amazing what a little bit of TLC can do.
Right. You can potentially use that phone for years.
Seriously. But it makes you wonder, why aren't more people doing this?
Yeah, it's such a good idea.
If repairing older flagships is so advantageous,
Right.
why aren't we all doing it?
What are the barriers?
Yeah, what's holding us back?
It's a great question, and one we'll explore further in part 2 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back. So, before we jump into those barriers, I think we should talk about how the idea of repairing an older phone can seem a bit counterintuitive
Oh, totally.
in our current tech culture.
Right, we are constantly being told to buy the newest devices.
Exactly. So it's like we forget that older phones can still be useful.
Yeah, it's like a 3-year-old phone is ancient history.
Right. Even though it might be able to handle most of our daily needs.
So what are some of the things that hold people back from repairing their phones? Is it just perception or their actual practical challenges?
It's actually a bit of both.
Okay.
On the practical side, I think one of the biggest hurdles is just awareness.
Awareness.
Yeah. A lot of people probably don't realize that repairing their older phones is even an option,
That's true.
and that it's often pretty affordable.
Right, we get so caught up in the hype of new phones
I know.
that we forget about the potential that's
Hiding in our drawers.
yeah, exactly.
And then there's the fear factor.
Oh, yeah.
Some people might be intimidated by the idea of opening up their phone or finding the right parts.
Yeah, especially if they're not very tech savvy.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that it can feel kind of daunting if you don't know anything about smartphone hardware.
Right. But you don't have to be a tech expert to give your old phone a second chance.
Sure.
That's where those skilled technicians come in.
Ah, okay. Yeah, we talked about that.
Right. There's so many experts out there who can fix these phones for you. And it brings us to another big barrier. Costs.
Oh yeah, cost is always a factor.
Even though repairing an older phone is usually much cheaper than getting a new one,
Yeah.
people might still hesitate to spend money on what they see as like an old device.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like, we don't want to put money into something we already own.
Right. It's all about shifting our perspective, like realizing that repairing an older phone is actually a smart financial move.
Yeah, especially when you think about how expensive new phones are.
Exactly. So it's like you're extending the lifespan of a device.
For way less money.
Yes. And then we have the psychological barriers.
Like what?
The shiny new object syndrome. Like, we are bombarded with all this advertising that tells us we need the latest gadgets.
It's true.
And it's hard to resist that.
Yeah, especially when you see everyone else with the new phone.
Right. And there's this whole social status thing associated with having a new phone.
Yeah, it's like a symbol of wealth or something. It's funny, though. You never really see people bragging about how long they've had their phone.
Right. It's all about the newest model.
So how do we change that?
How do we break free from the cycle of always buying new?
Yeah.
I think it starts with awareness and education.
Okay.
We need to show people the financial and environmental benefits of keeping their devices longer.
Right. And like even the social benefits.
Yeah, totally. It's
Okay.
about a more sustainable approach to technology.
And those YouTube videos we mentioned earlier can really help with that.
Definitely. They make the repair process seem less intimidating,
Yeah.
and it empowers people to make more informed choices.
Right.
It's not about saying no to new tech.
Uh-huh.
It's about being more thoughtful about how we consume it.
Okay. That makes sense.
You know, earlier we talked about how repair costs can be a concern.
Yeah.
But how do you think those costs change over time?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like, does it become more or less expensive to fix an old phone as it gets older?
I'm not really sure.
Well, right after a phone is released, repairs can be pretty expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, you're paying a premium for the newest tech.
Uh-huh.
The parts are brand new and in high demand.
Okay.
But as a phone model gets older, a few things happen.
Like what?
Well, the demand for those parts goes down as people upgrade to newer models.
Oh, okay. So it's like supply and demand.
Exactly. And as demand goes down, so does the price of the parts.
So repairing those older phones actually becomes more affordable over time.
Exactly.
Wow. I would not have thought that.
And then there's the rise of third-party parts.
Oh, yeah. What about those?
So as a phone model gets older,
Yeah.
more companies start making parts that are compatible,
Uh-huh.
and those parts are usually cheaper than the original ones.
So you have more choices,
Right, and more competitive pricing.
which is great for consumers.
Absolutely. And as a phone model becomes less common,
Yeah.
repair shops might have more parts on hand,
Okay.
and even more expertise in fixing those specific devices. So it's a win-win for both the consumers and the repair shops.
That's really cool.
All of those factors together can actually make repair costs go down over time.
Wow.
So it's even more advantageous to fix those older phones.
So the longer you keep a phone and take care of it,
Yeah,
the cheaper it becomes to keep it working.
exactly. It really challenges this idea that we have to throw away our tech after a few years.
Right.
Those older phones can last a long time if we take care of them.
That's amazing.
So to wrap up part 2,
Yeah.
we've looked at the barriers to repairing old phones,
Uh-huh.
both the real ones and the ones we just think are there.
Right.
And we've learned that repair costs can actually go down over time.
Yeah. Who knew?
It's all about changing how we think about our tech.
And making more sustainable choices.
Exactly. But there's still more to discuss.
Oh.
In part 3, we'll be looking at the environmental impact of smartphones
Okay.
and how repairing older phones can help us create a more sustainable future.
Sounds good. I can't wait to hear more.
So stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been talking about reviving old smartphones.
Yeah.
And now I want to talk about something really important.
Okay.
The environment.
Yeah, the environmental impact of our tech choices is huge.
Right. It's easy to forget about that when you're excited about a new phone.
I know.
But when you think about how many phones are made and thrown away each year,
It's mind-blowing.
it really is.
And that's where repairing old phones can make a difference.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, if we keep our phones longer,
Uh-huh.
we don't need to buy new ones as often.
So we're reducing demand.
Exactly. It's like a small act of rebellion against this throwaway culture.
I like that.
It's about being more sustainable.
Right. Like thinking about the whole life cycle of a device.
Yeah, and not just the environment.
Oh.
Repairing phones can have social benefits too.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Well, if we make tech more affordable through repair, we can help close the digital divide and make sure everyone has access to technology.
That's a great point.
It's about being responsible with our innovation.
Yeah, not just chasing the newest thing.
Right.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
I think it's about choice.
Choice.
Yeah, like we have the power to change things, to be more mindful about our tech.
And to make a difference for ourselves and the planet.
Exactly.
And it could start with something as simple as repairing an old phone.
Right, instead of just buying a new one.
It's about seeing the value in what we already have.
And making it last.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I hope we've inspired you to think differently about your old devices.
Me too.
Maybe there's a smartphone legend just waiting to be revived in your drawer.
Give it a second chance.
And join us in creating a more sustainable tech future.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep those tech adventures alive.
If you want your smartphone fixed for a very reasonable price, you may contact Sydney CBD Repair Centre. We also provide mail-in repair services for customers outside of Australia or Sydney. Just message us so we can arrange the shipping of your device.